Are you a pocket money pensioner left with very little to spend after you've paid all your bills? According to a report by retirement specialists LV, the average 11-year-old has more pocket money than many pensioners. Well, that headline will make many listeners spark an interest and turn up the volume. Peter Chadborn is a financial expert with Plan Money. Peter, that headline itself, more money in their pockets at the end of the week.
It's quite worrying, isn't it? A recent ONS survey said that the essential living costs for someone who's retired is £146 a week. Yet LV's survey has said that 15% of retirees are going to have £154 or less a week. So that's £8 cash in hand a week, which is less than some 11-year-olds' pocket money.
Is it because people put their heads in the sand and don't think what's going to happen ahead, or has something happened to their money, their retirement, their pension pot?
Do you know, I think it's a bit of both. I think the first point is absolutely right. I think retirement for many people seems so far off, doesn't it? Unless we were lucky enough to be given a company pension when we first started work, it's very much something that we get round to looking at some point. So it is very easy to put our head in the sand. But against that, there's the backdrop of people worrying about their jobs, the cost of living going up, and also we always want more than previous generations, don't we? You know, when we think what previous older generations had as in terms of their lifestyle, it was more frugal than ours. And so for that reason, I think we end up with these figures that we're looking at today.
More frugal but more secure because they knew they were going to have a pension. And so many people, and I count myself in this number, our state pension age has been pushed back and back.
It is, and it's a fact that people are living longer, and the governments have finally done their sums and realised that they're going to have to defer the state pension age because they've got to pay people for longer and longer, and just the sums don't add up. And so that also translates into our personal lives, doesn't it, where we see a lot of people deferring retirement thinking, well, I can't really afford to retire just yet, so I'm going to keep going a little bit longer.
So more people are working for longer?
That's right, yeah. And I think it's not necessarily because they realise that they're going to have a longer retirement. I think it's just because they realise, well, I can't actually afford to stop working just yet.
And also because if they did have any savings, they were lucky enough to have some, the interest rate on the return of that is so little that's not been good for their pensions or for their savings.
It hasn't, and that's also a common problem where money is having to stretch that much further. I mean, if you look at people who retired 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, you know, they didn't need as big a pot of money as people need today or will need in 10 years' time to get the same income. So that is a sad fact also.
I always remember an ad in a local bank. It said, thinking about retirement when you're 20, that's sad. About to retire and no pension, now that's sad. And I think that's true because young people don't think they're ever going to be old for a start.
Absolutely right. And whether it's a young person who's thinking about retirement and saying, hey, it's a long time off, or whether it's someone who's in their 50s who's thinking, oh, I've left it too late, we would say it's never too late. And I would encourage people to be very honest with themselves, and if they haven't done it before, complete a budget planner. And okay, you've got fixed outgoings that you have to pay, but if you're very honest, you can look a lot of variable outgoings and say, you know, do I really need all these things I'm paying out for, and can I cut down on a few? And just getting that discipline of putting money by is a very, very healthy step to take.
So what's your advice? You say it's never too late, but how late's too late? When can you start thinking and planning if you've left it?
The longer you leave it, it's a fact that you're going to have to make some very big commitments to play catch up. But hopefully, by the time a lot of people are in their 50s, maybe the children have left home or are starting to leave home. Hopefully, mortgages, if you have them, are being paid off. So just starting at that point, putting a few pound by isn't going to make any difference, and it is too late. So the later you are, the bigger commitments that you have to make, and that starts again with the budget planner and having a long, hard look at, well, when is retirement going to be, and actually working out what you're going to need to achieve to do that.
I interviewed financial guru Alvin Hall just recently, and he made the point that many pensioners or people in their 50s still are paying off interest-only mortgages. So you say, hopefully you've paid off the mortgage. Not necessarily.
No, and that's a classic example of putting your head in the sand. Okay, you've got the house that you want and you're paying for it via your mortgage. But yeah, that's a very good point, that if it's not paid off, then there's a problem there. And perhaps that is a bigger issue to face, which means maybe downsizing to a smaller property to pay the mortgage off.
So what is the ideal pension amount? What should people be trying to achieve?
There's no magical sum, and I'll come back to answer the question. I'll come back to my point earlier about the budget planner. A lot of people think that they need to replace a proportion of their income, or as much of their income as they can, when they retire. And I would encourage people to turn it on their head and make a list of their essential outgoings, and in turn make that the target. That's what I need to get by. These are the bare minimums. And then perhaps think, well, if I want to go on holiday once a year, this is my ideal target. And then suddenly that seems a lot more achievable than assuming that you have to just replace automatically a big chunk. So it's individual circumstances, but it starts with a budget planner.
Yeah, the report also says that there's £2.3 billion lost in retirement savings in the last year, as many over 50s reduced contributions. Is that because they couldn't afford to pay the bigger contribution?
It could be a combination of things. It could be worrying about the security of their job. It could be just general cost of living, or it could be perhaps wanting a little bit more than they can afford. The extra holiday, or changing the car when perhaps there's a few more years left in it. That sort of thing. So if people genuinely are falling on hard times and have to reduce their contributions, then of course there's nothing they can do about that.
The Family Spending Survey, I'm quoting your figures, of course, says the weekly living costs for a single pensioner are £190.70. And of this, the essential weekly expenditure is £146.90. But of course, we've no control of those weekly costs, have we, as energy and food and all the other bills continue to rise?
No, largely we haven't, but there's still things that we can do about that. So when the house insurance or the car insurance or the utility bills come through and they're renewed on a yearly basis, particularly things like car and house insurance, I'd encourage people to shop around and see if they can get a better deal. And it's surprising, even with that, the savings you can make. But the two figures that you pick up on there is what I was alluding to earlier about the essential living costs and the ideal living costs.
Wants and needs.
Absolutely. And we all know there's a difference between the two.
So what's your advice if people listening thinking, yes, that could be me and I really haven't given it enough thought and it's not far off my retirement?
I think there's two things people can do. What they can do for themselves is to complete the budget planner and create a target for themselves. Those wants and needs that you mentioned. Okay, what do I absolutely need as a minimum to get by, and what would I like to have? Forget about what you're earning. Look at what your outgoings are now today, and that's a more realistic target. Secondly, anyone who's getting close to retirement really should be taking advice. Don't just accept the offer that comes through the post to you from your pension company if you have a pension, and get advice, because there are alternatives out there. If anyone's in poor health, they can get an enhanced annuity on their pension. All these sort of things they may not know about. So it's very crucial, as you get very close to retirement, if you haven't done before, to take advice.
Independent financial advisor Peter Chadborn from Plan Money, thank you.
You're welcome.